Okay, this is VK7. Oh, get rid of that, VK. This is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania, with our ATV Experimenters Night. And we've got a bit of a focus on the Remembrance Day contest tonight. So a lot of the elements in the program are around preparing and getting ready for your award-winning VK7 taking out the RD contest participation. So and I must start off by thanking Vince VK7VH, who is has done a fantastic job on promoting the RD contest, and also from the point of view of highlighting the logging software, which we'll do in a sec, go through it, and also the promoting the band dance, which if you don't know what that is, then stay tuned. So first of all, I was going to go through the boring bit, which is the Remembrance Day rules, the key rules around it. It's a fairly laid-back contest, and a great one to start with if you want to get into contesting but aren't quite sure how, why, when, and whatever else. So the contest runs, first of all, from 0300 UTC, which is 1 o'clock local time on the Saturday, through to 1 o'clock on the Sunday. And it's always held on the weekend in August closest to the end of hostilities in the Pacific. And if you listen to the broadcast, the WIA broadcast on Sunday, they had a little segment on that from the contest organiser, who went out and asked a whole lot of people about the RASA suggestion that we move the date, and I think they got a resounding no to that particular suggestion because of its significance and the fact that it commemorates those amateurs who lost their life in World War II. And so the end of hostilities in the South Pacific region on that particular day has a lot of meaning for a lot of people. So it's staying on the weekend closest to the 15th of August. So there are a whole lot of categories available to it. There is a single operator category, a single operator QRP, so low power, that's less than 10 watts or less. Multi-operator, single transmitter, so multi-single, and a multi-operator unlimited, which is a multi-multi, so many operators, many frequencies, etc. The subcategories for the single operators are phone on AM, FM or single sideband. CW is either CW or it is RTTY, and then there is a mixed mode, so it is the combination of those two. It is permitted bands 160 all the way up to as far up as you can go. However, it is not the WARC bands, so you stick with the 80, 40, 20 and 10. You can't use the 10 meg, the 10, 10, 18 or 24 meg frequencies. So just the standard HF frequencies. There are some rules around the multi-operator stations, so if you're a multi-operator single transmitter station, then you're only allowed one transmitted signal on the air at any one time. Whereas a multi-multi or a multi-unlimited stations, you're allowed two transmitted signals on the band at any one time, one per phone and one per CW. And simultaneous transmissions on different bands are permitted in those multi-operator bands. So you can have teams, and in fact the VK7 team of Murray, Richard and Vince last year took out the contest. the teams contest. So you can get together with other people and combine your scores. If you're going to do that, you need to contact the contest organiser, who is VK4SN at wia.org.au, and just let him know that there will be a team submission coming through. Contacts, standard contacts, they suggest calling of CQRD, CQ contest or CQ test, to put your call out there. The exchange is the standard RS, or if it's CW, you put the tone on the end, RST. And it is the exchange of numbers is the number of years that you have been licensed. So that's that accounts for a valid contact being made, a signal report, and an exchange of how many years you have been licensed, which is always fascinating during the contest, because you hear a whole range of them. I think the last one I heard was up in the 50s or 60 years, so certainly got a congratulations from me to being an amateur for that long. And also there were a couple in there that were only a year, so you put a bit of a shout out to them as well. So there you go. It is contacts are made between stations. It cannot be via a repeater, or can't be crossband, can't be via whatever, satellite, moon, etc, etc, etc. So that's and contacts within the same call area are permitted these days. The scoring, now this is where you need to take note. Scoring on 160 metres, it's 2 points per valid contact. On 23 centimetres and higher, it is also 2 points per valid contact. And in all other bands, it is 1 point per valid contact. However, take into account times. All scores obtained by the transmitting station between 0100 and 0600, and that's local time, so it's 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. Are tripled. So you can, if you are on 160 or 23 centimetres and above, you actually get 6 points between 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So it's worth staying up for those. You can rework call the same call every 3 hours. So in that 1 to 6, you could potentially get 12 points from that particular same contact. So it's worth staying up and worth recontacting them if they're about. So there's also a specific section called the World War II ex-military equipment. So operators who are using ex-World War II equipment will be awarded with a special certificate acknowledging their participation and use of such. So you need to make a declaration when you put your login to that effect, and you'll get a special certificate actually acknowledging that you're using equipment from the period. So logs. Alright, for those logs that are 100 contacts or less, you can put in a paper log. I'm not quite sure why you'd actually do that, and I think Vince made that comment. Given that there are a number of logging programs available to you, probably the one of choice that I seem to hear more people using is the VKCL by Mike VK3AVV. That is specifically has a Remembrance Day section, and it takes into account all of the rules. So yeah, that's one. It also links to things like OmniRig and rig control applications. There's another one from VK5DJ. That is the VK5DJ logger for the Remembrance Day. I've actually used that for a few years. Good little logger, and it enables you to export it at the end. So if you do over 100 contacts, then the paper log is not available to you. It has to be in electronic log format, and both of those programs enable you to export in the format that is actually you need to submit your log with. So there you go. Now the determination of the winning state, it's all about participation and a participation rate. So the more logs that we can get put in for VK7, the more chance that we will actually have. The more chance we will actually have to take out the RD. So it's the total number of all of the logs put together in VK7 divided by the number of participating stations, and that becomes your participation rate. So yeah, it is all about participation. So it's you've got to be in it to win it, and it's becoming harder and harder for VK7 to actually retain the trophy. So the more stations we can get involved, the better. So I thank Vince for highlighting that and getting people on air. The band dance that Vince talks about is we have a whole range of frequencies which will be up on the mailing list, the VK7 mailing list, that that lists standard frequencies where you can go to, and that's where the VK7s will be hanging out, and hopefully make contacts with them, and each 3 hours come back and go through from one end of the from 160 metres up to 24 gigs or whatever you've got capability to do, and you can work your way through, and then 3 hours later you can work your way back through it again, and in between times you can whiz off and see whether you can get some other contacts on the way through. So yeah, the contest awards, there are awards. Entrants must make at least 25 contacts to be eligible for the awards. There is a minimum of 10, but if you just submit a log with 10 in it, then the awards are not available to you. But there's a first, second and third for single operator phone, CW and mixed, and single operator QRP phone, QRP, CW and QRP mixed, multi-operator single transmitter and multi-operator multiple transmitter. And obviously for the teams, and then the 3 foundation scorers regardless of category, the highest foundation scorers as well. And there's the acknowledgement certificate as well for the World War II ex-military equipment. So it's worth a look on the WA website, because the contest rules are all there, and it shows you things like format, an example log for the format. The logging software, I mentioned VKCL, VK5DJ. There is an SD logger by EI5DI, and there's also N1MM supports the Remembrance Day as well. So the M1MM is the logging program that most DXpeditions use, and so that also supports it. It is DOS based with the last time I looked at it, but it's made for fast logging of contacts all over and the QRP stations, sorry I got that wrong. QRP stations are limited to 5 watts average or PEP on sideband. I thought it was 10, so I apologise for that, that's not right. Okay, and in your log you can log rounded frequencies. So instead of saying the actual frequency like 3565 kilohertz, it can be 3500. So you don't have to put in the exact frequency. Although if you're using something like OmniRig, that will actually read the frequency from the rig and put that in the log. So you don't have to worry about that anyway. But Anyway, that's and there's a really good quick reference guide. There's a really good quick reference guide that it also accompanies the contest rules. Just a little one pager, which just gives you the all of the stuff you need to know on a particular page. So so there you go. Now I was just going to finish off. And again, thanks to Vince. For those, yeah, VK7 OTC, VK7BN. Go ahead. VK7BN, VK7 OTC.
Must be at their end.
Okay. I know that antenna's a bit dodgy. We are hearing you, Ben, if you're actually watching the streaming, or we are streaming tonight. So we are still streaming. Yes, we are. We are streaming, and we are going out on RF. So I was just going to mention the VHF and UHF frequencies. So on 6 metres, 52525, and we'll put these on the mailing list as well. On 2 metres, 146,500, so the call frequency, and I don't think there's a rule around using the call frequency, but anyway, we'll find out about that. 70 centimetres, 439 flat, and on 23 centimetres, it'll be 1296.15, which is the frequency we use for the QSO parties on Sunday. So that's the RD contest. I don't know whether there's any questions or anything that people want to throw in. We'll have there will be a few people with everything other than other than 5.7 gigs up to 24 gigs. Richard's tested with Rex tonight the 24 gig rigs between here and Rex's place and Loudon Boomer. We haven't got 5.7 covered, but and some of us haven't got 2.4, but I know Hayden and Richard got 2.4. So we've got almost every frequency covered from 160 to 24 gigs. 160 metres to 24 gigs. So there you go. So I think that's a pretty good effort. Okay, I've got a little bit of show and tell. I'll just change to... how do we do this? Now, I came across this little thing. Now, you're right if you think that that's a micro switch. It is. It is. I found this in a heater. We have a well, we don't anymore because I took it apart. But we have an oil-filled heater. You know, one of the floor standing oil filled heater. Yeah, oil filled column heaters. Filled column heaters. And it's leaking oil. So okay, and there's a whole lot of electronics and bits and pieces on the end of it because it's got a timer on it. It's got all sorts of stuff on it. And I went, well, I'm not throwing all that out.
Oh no,
I can use that. But when I took the cover off, there was this little device, and I thought that's a bit weird. And I sort of traced the circuit, and I went, well, this actually cuts the power to the heater. This is actually an on-off switch for the heater.
To the actual element.
To the actual element. And I thought that's a bit weird. And it's got this little bulbous thing on the end, and there's a little thing that rattles round in it, and it's actually a ball bearing. And it's to switch off the heater if the heater actually falls over. So the ball centres itself in that little bulb and switches on these contacts.
Mm-hmm.
And these are 240 volt 10 amp contacts, so they're not insignificant. But it is a little. It's a bit like I've seen the mercury switches.
Yeah.
Which are a little glass bulb, and they've got a bead of mercury in them, and they've just got two contacts. And when you tip it so that the mercury touches the contacts, it makes connection, and like a tilt switch. That's.
Yeah, my motorbike's got one of those.
There you go. So it's very similar, except it uses a ball bearing and a micro switch. So
that's very similar to the submersible water pumps.
Oh, okay.
That have a cable on them and then a bulbous bit,
Yep.
sort of a flat rubber thing, and there's a ball bearing that rattles in there, and so when the level is low,
Yep.
it's down on its side, and as it rises up and needs to be pumped out, it makes a contact, starts pumping, falls back down again,
it just sits there and does that.
and it rattles just like that.
There you go. Absolutely love
Ball
it.
bearing switch.
Yeah.
Ball bearing switch. And I assume they now lure in column heaters because they're in a column heater.
Well, that's I've noticed modern fan heaters. They all have a push button thing on the bottom.
Yep.
That sits on the floor. So as soon as it tips off the floor,
It switches off.
Mm.
There you go. So that's actually our program tonight, which is good because what I've got is the video. Unless we've got something else, I'll ask our studio audience. John, you're joining the club.
Yes. We done.
Lovely. So, unless we've got something else, might get Richard in. Richard?
Richard. Okay. I'll have to call him this. It's very noisy out there.
Yeah. I'll get Richard in because Richard's done his first 24 gig contact tonight.
Yeah.
That's worth celebrating.
Absolutely.
Come on, Richard. You got to sit in here.
Oh no.
Yeah, you do.
Lenses will break.
Now, what I need to do though is go to here. Oh, that's better. Welcome, Richard VK7ZBX.
Greetings.
Good evening.
Thank you very much.
Now, I understand tonight you did your first 24 gig contact.
I did, and it was I was really impressed.
Fantastic. Describe what you did.
Basically, Rex brought his standby 24 gig system along, which he hastily put together, I believe, today.
Right. Okay.
Because you do.
Okay.
And it's because he wasn't able to find a waveguide switch.
Yep.
or a relay that was rated to 24 gigs. He did the next best thing and basically had a separate receive and separate transmit antenna
Love it.
with a little bit of a sort of
Barrier?
a barrier between the two, to stop the crosstalk. And it's just incredible. Like the transmit horn is probably...
Have you got it?
Yeah, I've got it in the cup. Let me go grab it.
Just
one moment.
we'll take a commercial break.
One moment.
Actually, what we can do is a commercial break. I can do this. I can do this. I can. We have the technology. We have the technology. If I do that and go 1, 2, 3, and we go from the magic of television. Oh, that's good, isn't it?
Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television Experimenters Night. This is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. This is VK7OTC. Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television.
It's where the spaceship lands.
Oh, hang on. Let's do that again. Here we go.
Okay.
Now, Richard's back. Okay, describe what we're looking at.
Okay, so what we're looking at is
Actually, what we can do here. Keep going, keep going.
Let me have it up the right way.
We can...
Zoom in. Look at that. Let me.
okay.
Okay, so and a very well put together bit of chassis by Rex. We have basically the transmit horn and the receive horn, which don't point at something which is not on the screen. So this is the feed allegedly out of an offset dish.
Oh, okay.
So it hasn't got a lot of gain according to Rex, maybe about 6 or 8 dB of gain.
Okay.
Whereas the transmit horn here has a guesstimated about 16 dB of gain.
Okay.
So they just feed straight into the bit of coon goodness here,
The expensive coon goodness.
which generates 2 watts at 24,048 megahertz, which is pretty sort of nice. So
Lovely.
look at that, that's beautiful. There's a meter here which basically gives an output of power.
Okay.
Word from our sponsor. So basically an input here for push to torque, input here for push to torque, and an input here for the IF. Now you'll notice here that that's labelled 10 IF in and 10 megs.
Yep.
Rex was trying to catch me out, and in fact they were the opposite way round, which did have us a bit stumped for a while, but so I'll have to be changing the labelling or changing the connections, whichever.
Right.
And then just basically 12 volts in.
Yep. What's the relay for?
Sure what the relay is for. I'm guessing.
Guessing it powers up both those boxes.
Yeah. It's pushed to torque, it's power, it's ground.
Yeah, it powers up those two. The two. Interesting. Maybe it powers them up together.
Yeah. Okay.
Not sure.
So that's obviously the oscillator unit, which takes the 10 meg in and generates the 1192.5 in. So that multiplies it
Okay.
up heaps. But like it's a wonderfully
very,
compact unit,
Very nice.
and we set it outside with the obligatory J-car under the J-car catalogue under the front, and with 1 watt at 144 megs going in. The signal report from Rex at his place in Tolman's Hill was 50/9.
Unbelievable.
I do need to add, of course, that Rex was running 20 watts.
Yeah, with a dish.
Yeah, with a dish.
With a dish.
And he did have a preamp, so like it's an EME grade system. So,
Yes.
but this will allow us to rack up lots of
24.
points for the RD contest on 24 gigs.
6 points.
So
Lovely. Lovely. Well, congratulations on making your first 24 gig contact.
I'm pretty impressed. And we should mention too that Rex and I were within 1 dB of making the first VK7 to VK7 10 gig EME contact. We spent about an hour
Trying to get the 1
Yeah,
dB.
and Rex was able to decode to decode my call sign, but wasn't able to decode the grid square and the report. Sorry, he was able to decode the grid square and call sign,
Yes.
but not the
The
signal
report.
So, and we calculated it about 1 dB. So
Nearly. What were the conditions like? Were they?
almost as good as it gets. The spreading was about
Yeah.
not quite. The spreading was about 20 hertz,
Yep.
and the lunar degradation was about 0.5 dB. So
Okay.
there was a little bit of room there, but yeah.
Yeah, only half a dB though.
I think the spreading went down to about 7 hertz on that particular occasion.
Okay.
On the next run through next month, it could get down to maybe 2 hertz, but very low
So,
elevation.
what are you running at your place for that? What's the dish size and the
For 10 gigs,
Yeah.
it's a 60 centimetre dish
Okay.
with 30 watts.
Okay.
Rex had 1.13 metre dish and
Yep.
90 watts.
Yeah.
So, as they say, you do the math.
Yeah. Okay. Just on the limit.
But,
Okay.
cool. That's pretty. It's like,
Very nice.
it works really well.
Very nice indeed. Oh well, that's excellent. That is fantastic. We need to now work on 5.7 gigs.
We do. It's filling the gap.
I've still got those dishes.
I've got those 1 meg
Those
ones.
5.7. Oh well, you've got the one. Well and truly. So I've still got those, and if I'd have thought about this, I could have actually probably got the 5.7 gig AV senders that I've got, so that at least we would have had one. One. But no, not going to happen.
Sure how you identify. Do we have to hold up placards with our call sign on?
Oh no. Well, there's you use the A part of the AV for the audio.
Well, that's right. Why benefit?
And yeah, so and that is actually viable in the rules. So
Do the rules allow crossband?
no,
No.
And you're not allowed to use satellites of any form.
no, or
No.
repeaters or anything like that.
Yeah.
So you can use that to set up the contact, but then you've got to actually make the contact on
Yeah.
a single frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just suppose it's fair enough.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll and Richard's going to put on the VK7 Amateur Radio News mailing group the frequencies.
Yeah, that's
So
the
that's
plan.
good. So that's good.
So we'll all be sort of hanging around and roughly in the right spot,
Cool.
roughly.
Well, that's excellent.
Cool.
And at some point, I'll probably do a quick 3.4 gig test just to see whether it's even
Yeah.
going to be possible.
Yep, I think it'd be groovy.
So the rest of it, I'm happy with the 1296 because that's what I use for the QSAT parties, so that's not an issue. The 10 gig, I'm not that worried about because I'll actually be using the 1.13 meter dish.
And 3 watts.
And 3 watts.
Yeah.
So
And we've worked on a
Oh.
slightly smaller dish with
correct.
half a watt. So
With nothing.
Yeah.
So actually, it was less than that.
less than nothing. Interesting.
So it was a half of a quarter of an eighth of nothing. Yeah.
So that should be good. Yeah, so we just need to get some more people on 2.4 because Hayden and I can work
Correct.
down to Ranelagh. That was pretty surprising.
That was pretty good. That was
5 and 9.
5 and 9. So, and that's obviously not line of sight
No, that's some sort of really weird knife edge refraction.
off of Mount Wellington.
Because if you do a path profile, it's like 4,000 feet in the way. It's a pretty impressive look when you look at it on a path profile.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well,
But it
there you
worked.
go. Hey, for whatever reason, I love it.
It is.
This is what I like about radio. It's
That's right. Never be bored. There's always something cool to play with.
and you're wondering why the hell that works or why the hell that doesn't work.
That's right. Exactly right. I'm even impressed with the construction technique. Like,
Oh, very nice indeed. Nice
excellent.
bit of stability with the thick piece of aluminium.
Heat sinking, yeah. Love aluminium. It's very good.
But you're biased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just a bit.
Yeah. Because I am using on the 1.13 metre dish, I am using the foresaid mount, which you
nice.
assisted me with.
Nice. It's good to see it being used.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I've got a mount that I've got to actually make up on top of it because the transverter slots into the top of it now. So
Okay.
so the transverter is directly behind the dish. So I've got a bit of coax that's about this long. So
That's an optimum length. 10 gigs.
Correct. Even though Rex will still call that an attenuator, which it is.
Just don't tell them.
But anyway, so that's just so you're aware, and our listeners, the K3NG talk that I did at Gipstech.
Yep.
I submitted the.
I saw you did a nice, neat circuit diagram of that. I was pretty impressed with that.
That was for the presentation. For the presentation, you need to submit to Peter, the convener of Gipstech, a printable copy of the presentation
For the proceedings.
which I do each year, which we all do. So to do that, I had to come up with a circuit diagram, number one. But then I thought, actually, in making it into a presentable form, I'm going to do a little bit more work on it and actually put it into AR magazine.
Oh, wow.
because I think, and the reason I'm actually doing that is Matthew VK7ZBX, who I actually mentioned in the presentation because he actually contributed some code to the K3NG project.
That's right, you haven't seen that. Yep.
He was at Gibbs Tech, and he came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh, I'm Matthew." And I half expected something like that to happen, but he came up and we had quite a talk about it. He said, "I forgot about even doing that." He said, "That's 2 or 3 years ago, and it's off my radar." So I just had quite a talk to him. He said, "Oh, there's a few problems in these areas." And I took note of those.
Yeah.
So I just sort of went, okay, righto. And I now have the calibrate on the moon and calibrate on the sun buttons on the front.
Oh, nice.
So I put them in and included the updated pictures in the presentation. So
Cool.
but Larry asked for that for the circuit diagram.
Oh,
so
okay.
I thought, okay, I can now give it to him because I've actually done it.
Well, I need to bring in that at some point that Ras
Yes, Reast track.
Reast track, yeah.
Yeah.
Based on the Raspberry Pi, because the plan is to possibly use that for the 2.4 metre dish.
Okay.
But it looks really cool because it enables you to use the US digital absolute encoders,
Yeah.
which I think the K3NG, it's still a little bit sort of not 100% finished.
Not quite there yet
But,
on those.
I think it'd only be a very small step for someone to complete it.
Correct. Correct.
But yeah, look, I think the incremental encoders that we're using,
Brilliant.
will be
Absolutely
well and truly
brilliant.
enough. Yeah.
So yeah, you'll see it, AR magazine sometime soon. It has to go through the technical editors, so it's going to be a while. So
That's
anyway.
been impressive because it's a good project and it just works.
Correct. It just works. That's what I love about it. So yeah. Anyway, we'll now the video tonight is for those people who missed Ian Mackintosh last week, who gave us a wonderful talk on VR virtual reality archaeology. Was the title of the talk, and he had three generations of VR headsets, Oculus Rift headsets, set up with exactly the same VR environment. So you could do a bit of a comparison between the first generation, the second and the third generation, and find out how much better each of them are and how they respond and all of that sort of stuff. So the video tonight, which we'll go to in a sec, is that presentation. And after tonight, I'll put it up on the YouTube website, the Reast YouTube channel, so that anyone and everybody can have a look at it. And excellent talk, really good talk about the history of VR and those giants in the VR industry, and lots of stuff from memory lane. If you were into computer games back in the 80s and 90s. Richard's shaking his head. Network parties and all of that sort of stuff.
Yes.
It'll certainly bring back a few memories. So it's good stuff. And a huge thank you to Ian too for giving us that talk and putting in a huge amount of effort to set it all up and then get it all here and all of that sort of stuff. And also a thank you to Ron Cullen for organising a couple of half decent powered PCs that Ian could put the super duper overhead underhang reverse twist with fold out kitchen sink.
Added with the lid off.
Video cards. It was jury rigged. He does make comment about that. Anyway, so we'll get underway with that. So thank you for that, Richard.
No worries, thank you.
And congratulations and good luck in the RD, although you probably don't need it.
We'll give it a crack.
We'll all give it a crack.
Yeah.
Participation.
Definitely right.
We need lots and lots of people.
We just need to win.
We just need to win
Just
again.
need to win again.
And it's becoming harder and harder for us to win. So that's the participation bit.
And then the send log off. So use VKCL and you can send the log from within the software.
Straight off. In fact,
Before
the
you
night you
reply.
finish.
That's right.
So VKCC is the log to use.
CL.
VKCL.
VKCL.
Not necessarily the
CL.
only one.
Yeah.
There is. I
Charlie
think there's a VK5 one.
No, there's a VK5 and there
which
is
very good. I've used that in the past, but
there's also N1MM, which is the what the D Expeditions use for their logging. So that now supports the RD contest, which it didn't before.
Yep.
And there's a thing called SD Logger by EI5DI as well.
does say
But HF logging only. So VKCL and the VK5DJ are probably the two of choice. And I've used both. Last year I used VKCL, and the year before that and the year before that I used the VK5DJ.
Yeah, I used the VKCL on the first time.
So
I use it for the field days as well.
yeah, because it supports all of it. So anyway, we'll get underway. So thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, we'll get underway with Ian Mac's VR Archaeology. Now, let me just do something here. We'll go to there and the desk mics.